Broca's Area by Kaylee, Christina, Emily, and Lindsay. The unfortunate event. In early 1861, a Frenchman attempted suicide. He placed a gun to his head, fired it, but missed. The gun still made contact with the outer portion of his head, shattering his skull, but causing no brain damage. When he went to the doctor, the physician was able to see the still functioning brain under the shattered skull. He could not help himself but want to poke at his patient's brain to see if there would be any effect. The physician then grabbed a metal spatula and began to press against the patient's brain. To his disappointment, there was no real effect, until he got to a part of the brain on the back of the frontal lobe. When the physician pressed here, the patient's speech was interrupted and made the patient mute. In April of 1861, this case was shared at a scientific meeting in France, where Paul Broca heard this story. He used this story to motivate him to investigate this area of the brain. He used a brain of a deceased patient to dissect and investigate this area to find it to be the language spot, later adopting the name Broca's Area.
Normal biology of Broca's area. Broca's area is found in the cerebral cortex. It lies anteriorly to the inferior region of the premotor area of the brain. This is demonstrated in the image on the left of the slide. It is only found in one hemisphere of the cerebrum, usually the left. Broca's is the motor speech area. It is highlighted in yellow in the image on the right, amongst other motor control areas of the cerebral cortex. Broca's area controls the ability to produce speech voluntarily. This is achieved through activation of the speech production muscles, such as those comprising the tongue. Some imaging studies also indicate that Broca's area may be involved in preparing or planning for other voluntary motor activities as well.
In an abnormal Broca's area featured on the right side of the screen, it is evident that there is damage, hopefully in most cases, not due to trauma from a spatula. Because this area of the brain is the center for speech and language, damage to this area can cause a decreased control in speech. This is referred to as Broca's aphasia. When this occurs, an individual's communication skills are impaired, similar to tan-tan in the reading. Aphasia means an acquired loss of speech. Individuals who experience this abnormality in their Broca's area have trouble with getting words out, repetition, and/or could possibly speak in short, broken sentences. The pictures above represent the apparent damage to this area on the bottom right picture. This Broca's area is severely indented and deformed.
There are several ethical considerations that can be taken into account from the unfortunate event. A main concern is that the physician put the patient at great risk by haphazardly poking at his brain. As we now know, poking at a person's brain without prior neurobiology knowledge can be extremely detrimental to their health. In addition, by using a metal spatula as a tool for investigation, the physician did not seem too concerned with being sanitary, also putting his patient's health at risk. Another factor of ethical consideration is that the physician put his desire to learn about the brain in front of his patient's recovery process. The patient's recovery and health should be the doctor's main concern, but the physician in this story put his own concerns first and the patient second. An ethical consideration to think about with Broca's investigation with Tan is that he never received consent to dissect his body and use it for research purposes. A person, dead or alive, should always have the final say over their body, and Broca should have received consent to dissect his body before doing so.
Without the studies of these physicians, we would not know how the brain works today. Through their experiments, they proved that localization is how the brain works, and the location within the brain can tell you the function. Although the brain still works as a whole and different parts constantly communicate with one another, we can pinpoint functions at certain points of the brain. This has allowed us not only to better understand the function of the brain, but also has allowed us to come up with treatments and cures to diseases. Although it was necessary for the advancement of knowledge, it emphasized the importance of ethical codes and regulations for patients. Overall, without the revolutionary studies of these physicians, we would not know how the brain works like we do today.